After reading the book Zen in the Art of Archery, I found out that there is something archers know that most of us don't. When you draw a bow, there is a moment of perfect tension. The string is pulled back, your muscles are engaged, the arrow is waiting, and everything in you wants to release it. But here's the thing that separates a master archer from everyone else. They don't release the arrow, they simply stop holding the string. I know it sounds the same. From the outside, it looks identical. The arrow flies either way. But there's a world of difference between these two phenomena. When you try to release the arrow, your mind thinks about an action that needs to be taken. There's a decision, a moment when you say, now. And in that fraction of a second, your body tenses. Your aim shifts and the ego gets involved. But when you stop holding the string, something else happens. The action was already in motion. The tension was already there. You're not adding anything new. You're simply allowing what was already happening to complete itself. In the book, there is a conversation between the student and his master that captures this perfectly. The student asks, "How can the shot be released if I do not do it?" And the master replies, "It shoots." Frustrated, the student asks again, "How can I wait self-obliviously for the shot if I am no longer there?" It waits at the highest tension. And who or what is this it? The master smiled. Once you have understood that, you will have no further need of me. Now you might be wondering why I am talking about archery. I'm a photographer, not an archer. I spend my time with cameras, not bows. Anyway, I learned something from this philosophy that changed everything about how I create, and more importantly, how I let go what I create. Because the question I struggled with for quite some time, making me stare at the same photograph for the 100th time, was this: when is it done? When do I stop? When do I let go? And the answer I discovered has nothing to do with the art itself. It has everything to do with how I hold to it. This isn't just about archery or photography. It's about everything we hold on to, every burden, every expectation, every version of ourselves we can't seem to release. So let me tell you about my struggle, and maybe somewhere in it, you'll recognize your own. It's 2 a.m., and I'm sitting in front of my screen. The photograph in front of me is the one I took weeks ago, maybe it was a month ago. I've opened this file for 47th time, 47 sessions, 47 attempts to make it right. So many times I've said, the shadows are too dark, now they're too light, the colors feel off. I have 16 versions of this same photograph saved in my folder, and I still don't know which is the one. This is the curse of infinite possibilities with digital photography, and maybe it's the curse of our time in general. In analog days, the process was much simpler. You went out, you took your photos, and when you finished the roll of film, you develop it. That was the end product. There was a finish line in sight. Digital photography gave us freedom in the form of possibilities. I can adjust every pixel. I can recover shadows that were lost. I can paint with the light in post-processing, treating the photograph like a canvas that's already there, waiting for me to refine it. But with that freedom came something else, the paralysis of never being done. Because when can you be done if you can always do more? I remember the advice someone gave me when I was first learning to edit. Push each slider further than comfortable. Shadows too dark, highlights too bright, colors extremely saturated. Then ease it back slowly until you get the feel of, that's it. That is your finish line. Beautiful advice. But here's what they didn't tell me. Looking good is time dependent. What looks good today might look wrong tomorrow. So the question remains, when do I actually stop? And here's where the real struggle begins. It's about perfectionism. That I call it done and later realizing I should have known better. How many times have I said that to myself? Looking at an old photograph, wondering at the choices I made, the composition, the editing, the whole thing. And here's the trap. If I keep saying I should have known better, how far back do I actually go? At what point in my life can I finally say, I could not have known any better? Because that point exists. There was a time when I genuinely didn't know better. A time when this photograph, with all its flaws, was the absolute best that I could do. And that version of me, the person who didn't know better, is the reason I can do better now. So why am I judging him? In archery, there is something called target panic. It's when an archer becomes so afraid of missing that they either can't release the arrow at all or they punch at it the moment their aim gets closer to the target. The fear of imperfection creates the imperfection. I had the photographer's version of that perfectionism paralysis. The harder I tried to finish the photograph perfectly, the more it eluded me. The more I gripped it, the less I could see it clearly, to the point that I would just get up and take a walk in my room. And that's where I remember the archer, the one who doesn't release the arrow, the one who simply stops holding the string. The philosophy of the surprise release is built on three pillars, and once I understood them, I started to see them clearer, not just in archery, but in photography, in art, and in life itself. The first pillar, the paradox of control. To gain total control over the result, we must give up the control over the moment. The master archer explains it in this way. When the bow is drawn to its full extent, it encloses the all in itself. This is why it is important to learn how to draw it properly. But here's the problem. The student struggles. He tries to control the exact moment of release, but it never works. He tells his master, if I clench my hand as tightly as possible, I can't stop it from shaking when I open my fingers. If I try to keep it relaxed, the bowstring is torn from my grasp too early. And the master says something beautiful. You must hold the drawn bowstring like a child holding an adult's finger. It grips it so firmly that one marvels at the strength of the tiny fist. And when it lets the finger go, there is not the slightest jerk. Do you know why? Because a child doesn't think, I will now let go of the finger in order to grasp this other thing. Completely unself-consciously, without purpose, it turns from one to the other. I think about my editing, all those nights, trying to force the photograph to be perfect, trying to control the outcome. But the more I controlled, the less I could see what was actually there. What if instead of trying to make it perfect, I simply trusted the process? What if I focused on the intent to express something true and then let the execution happen naturally? The second pillar, detachment from the result. The master tells the student, don't think of what you have to do. Don't consider how to carry it out. The shot will only go smoothly when it takes the archer himself by surprise. It must be as if the bowstring suddenly cut through the thumb that held it. You must not open the right hand on purpose. This is where I was stuck. Every time I edited, I was thinking about the final result, about how people would say it, about whether it would be good enough. I was living in the future that hasn't happened yet, and that future was creating anxiety in the present. But what if I stayed in the process itself? What if I edited not to achieve some perfect end result, but simply to explore the photograph in front of me, to see what it wanted to become, rather than forcing it into what I thought it should be? The third pillar, natural justice. One day the student is at the point of highest tension, waiting, and the waiting becomes painful. He tells the master, I can't help it, the tension gets too painful. And the master responds with this, you only feel it because you haven't really let go of yourself. It is all so simple. You can learn from an ordinary bamboo leaf what ought to happen. It bends lower and lower under the weight of snow. Suddenly, the snow slips to the ground without the leaf having stirred. Stay like that at the point of highest tension until the shot falls from you. So indeed it is. When the tension is fulfilled, the shot must fall. It must fall from the archer like the snow from a bamboo leaf, before he even thinks about it. This one hits me the hardest. My photograph had their own natural point of completion, not based on my ego's idea of perfection, but based on something simpler, the natural evolution of my perspective. I remember printing a photograph once. I was so proud of it on screen. The colors looked perfect. The mood was exactly what I wanted. And then I got the print back and it was different. The paper changed the texture. It wasn't what I imagined. For a moment I was frustrated. I wanted to go back and edit it again, fix it, make it match my vision. But then I realized this is the photo, this is the physical print with its imperfection, and this is what exists in the world now. And it was complete, not because it was perfect, but because it had reached its natural conclusion, like snow falling from the bamboo leaf. I didn't decide to let go. The letting go happened because my perspective shifted. When I look at some of my photos from years ago, I cringe. And I used to think this was a bad thing. But now I see it differently. If it is meant to be cringe, then that is supposed to happen. It means I've grown. If I look at old work and think it's still perfect, it means I haven't learned anything new. I'm stuck. My different response in that moment is evidence of progress. And more than that, it is a reminder to be kind to the person who made that work. Because, yes, technically I'm looking at my old photos, but the person who took those photos, who spent hours of editing, who was proud of them, that person doesn't exist anymore. I'm different now. Different perspective, different skills, different emotional depth. So, why would I judge the past version of me by current standards? It's like asking a 5-year-old why they don't understand quantum physics. They simply cannot. They don't have the foundation yet, and neither did the past me. This is what I mean by respecting different stages of life. Not only do our emotions change, their depth, their quality, their intensity, but our entire perspective changes. So the art we create today not only should but must have a different meaning tomorrow. This is growth. And when you say it this way, the question of when to let go becomes easier to answer. You let go when the art represents an expression of who you are in that moment, not who you will be in 5 years. And that person who got the job done now deserves rest. So just let them be free from the burden, which disguises itself as responsibility. Because here's the thing, romanticizing or demonizing that old version feels like we are in control. But that control is required to be surrendered in order to be open to everything else. Let me bring us back to the bow and arrow. The string is already being held, the action is already in motion, the tension is already built. The master says, the demand that the door of senses be closed is not met by turning energetically away from the sensible world, but rather by readiness to yield without resistance. This is the difference between ego and wisdom. Ego says, I will let go, I will finish this, and I will make it perfect. But wisdom says, I will show up, I will do the work, and I will allow the completion to happen when it's ready. You don't release the string, you simply no longer hold on to it. In photography, this changed how I edit. I used to sit down and say, I'm going to finish this photo today. I'm going to make it perfect. Now I sit and say, let me work with this photo. Let me see what it needs. And at some point, without me deciding it, the editing is done. The photo is complete and I move on. Not because I command it, but because the process reached its natural conclusion. And here's the beautiful thing. This doesn't just apply to photography. This applies to everything we hold on to. Relationships that ended, mistakes we made, the versions of ourselves we've outgrown, projects we started but never finished, expectations we had that didn't come true. We don't force ourselves to let these things go. We expand our perspectives. We see them differently. We respect the stage of life they came from. We take responsibility for all our versions, past and present. And then, without us deciding it, the letting go happens. The grip loosens, the burden falls away. We no longer hold what was never ours to carry forever. This is the art of letting go, not as an action, but as a result, as a natural conclusion, as snow falling from a bamboo leaf when the weight becomes too much. And in that space where we stop gripping, there is peace. So if you are holding on to something right now, if you're asking yourself, when can I let this go? When can I move on? Maybe the answer is to accept the version of you that created it, held it, and needed it. And then when you're ready, not when you decide you should be ready, but when you actually are, you will find that you're no longer holding it. Not because you forced it, but because it was time. And you'll move to the next thing, the next start, the next project, the next version of yourself. Not perfectly, but completely, for now. And that's enough. If this resonated with you, share it with someone who's being too hard on themselves, someone who's trying to force themselves to let go, someone who needs to hear the Zen way of moving on. Like, share, and subscribe. And until next time.